Yeah, uh, yeah, uh.
The NFL draft is over. Landing spots are known. It is rookie draft season. Welcome into the Dynasty Gambit. With all that we know, there is still a ton unknown. I am your host, Jay. You can find me at FantasyJ77 on Twitter. With me, as always, Kyle at Sinra Says, Brian at VandyGrad92 over there on that Blue Bird app. Fellas, we covered a ton on Saturday, closing out the draft. I wanted to know from each one of you, is there something that we may have missed during our coverage, or was there something we just didn't have time to get to? Brian, let's start with you.
First of all, I just want to welcome everybody to the show. I'm glad to be here. I know we're here on a Friday night instead of a Thursday, but thank you to our understanding wives, and we're glad we can be here. But yeah, in terms of the draft, there were a couple of things. My first question to everybody in the room, what do we think about Washington going to Pittsburgh as the tight end? Is that going to affect Freiermuth in any way in terms of his dynasty value?
Kyle, I'll let you answer first.
I guess my initial thought is this probably hurts Washington that he's buried behind Freiermuth. He didn't seem to garner many targets in college. As much as I love the athleticism, we've seen Freiermuth, command a certain number of targets in the NFL already. So I think he's got to climb over him, and I think that might be difficult. So I would say it's worse for Darnell Washington for someone like me, who again had him as the tight end one, but what do I know? I don't know tight ends. Well, also, glad to be here, Dynasty Gambit, and we have a guest. So maybe we should ask the guest and transition to.
I enjoy the question right there, because I think it's about one thing. It's all about this. It's all about hand size. We went from 7-inch hands to 11-inch hands in Pittsburgh. We do have a guest tonight. I'm so glad you brought it up. It is Rahul at Rahul11 over there on Twitter. One of our writers for Going for Two. Rahul, let me be the first to welcome you into the Gambit. How are you tonight, sir?
Doing well. Thank you for having me on, Jay, Kyle, and Brian. New writer at Going for Two. This is really the first talk show that I've actually ever done. So it's very exciting for me. I'm very grateful for the opportunity and excited to talk ball with you guys.
Absolutely. Well, I want to throw a question back to Kyle real quick, and then I want Rahul's answer on it. Kyle, the same question I threw a minute ago. Was there something we missed during our coverage, or that we maybe just didn't get to?
Excuse me. Yeah, it made me sneeze so much. It was so bad. But who's Lou? Lou Nichols. What? I scouted, I think, 28 different running backs, and he was not one of them. He was the only running back drafted that I had no idea who he was, and the Green Bay Packers took him, which is my favorite team. So there we go. That's great for the Packers pod next week.
There you go. Guess you have some research to do.
Well, and I tried to look. I couldn't even find any game film on him, which is probably why he wasn't on my radar in the first place. Looked up his production metrics. He didn't have a relative athletic score, so there is very little known about him. I would say he's probably more of a special teamer. I wouldn't draft him over in rookie drafts, really just at all, period. But if I'm going to do it, I'd rather every other running back that was drafted, maybe even a couple of the UDFAs, to be honest. So.
Where was anyone know who Lou Nichols is?
Sorry,
Rahul, have you heard of the guy yet?
That's the first that when I looked on the show sheet, that's the first I'd heard of him.
And so you were just like, yeah, there's no sense in doing research. If Kyle looked up 28, this guy is not worth looking at.
If he could be 29, it could be 50. It's probably not for me.
I'm just trying. For some reason, I kind of know that name. Where did he play college ball?
Who's Lou? I don't even know. I'll look it up real quick. Sorry.
I'm wondering.
He's on the Packers. That's all I care about.
When you say you've heard the name, it's not Tyler.
Central
right?
Michigan.
Hey, okay.
All right.
Central.
Yeah, it's the second mention for some reason. Yeah.
Well, it is rookie draft season, like I said earlier. So got a few questions I want to find the answers to. So I want to know what trends you're seeing in your drafts right now. So let's start with Rahul. Have you seen in any of your rookie drafts Bijan not go 101?
So far, I've got 4 rookie drafts that are ongoing. One of them completed. Every single one, Bijan has gone 101. you'll see on Twitter, you might hear a hot take or two from YouTube or a podcast that they'll say Anthony Richardson is their 101. And I do see the case for it. Richardson potentially, it's not an egregious statement to say that Richardson has the highest ceiling of any of the 2023 rookies. He has a good chance to be the highest value 2023 rookie going into next offseason. I just can't do with the combination of the ceiling and the floor that Bijan brings you versus, the ceiling is very high with Anthony Richardson, but, the floor is a trap door too.
Yeah, my concern with the 101, and I think I've said this to both Kyle and Brian in the past, is if you're sitting there with the 101 and you earned the 101, you're not looking for reaches, right? You're not looking for the guy that might get you. You want that solid production. Am I wrong there, Brian?
No, I mean, you've definitely got to have solid production. I mean, you can't gamble with the 101. But I guess my whole takeaway from this is I love that term, earn the 101, because literally you really didn't earn anything. But
you know what I mean. You know what I mean.
I'll say one thing. I was in a rookie draft that started 2 days ago on Wednesday, and Bryce Young was the 101, not Richardson, not Robinson. So,
wow.
As much as we expect it'll be Bijan in most and Richardson the rest, there are chances that Young or maybe even Stroud appears at a 101 at a certain point. So, keep drafting.
That leads me to my next question. Brian, is Anthony Richardson the first quarterback off the board in most of your drafts? And if he's not, who is it?
Well, I wish I had more in-depth discussion. So far, we've only had one of my leagues that drafted. We've got several more starting over the weekend. But
okay.
In the one that I've done, Anthony Richardson was the number one quarterback, and then it went Bryce Young and then Stroud. But the most surprising pick in that draft to me, Bijan, of course, was the 101, but the 102 was Jahmyr Gibbs, and this was Superflex, so it kind of shocked me.
Well, there was news that came out from Detroit. Basically, their wide receivers coach went to Jahmyr Gibbs and said, "We're going to be using you out of the slot." So there is a great possibility that he's going to be catching more balls than running balls.
Williams.
Well, and I mean, Swift was a hell of a receiver out of the backfield, but this looks like they're going to actually have him designed routes to run from the perimeter. So, Kyle, same question to you real quick, since I know you've done a few more than Brian. AR, is he the first quarterback off the board for you in most of your drafts?
Well, I guess 3 rookie drafts right now.
Okay.
One that finished, as I mentioned, Young went first, and then 2 others that have started. And in both those other instances, Richardson was the first quarterback on.
Yeah, it seems like he's with the landing spot in Indy. He gained a ton. He jumped to 2 quarterbacks that were supposed to be in front of him, even though we knew that those landing spots were going to be Carolina and Houston, respectively, whichever quarterback went there.
I also wonder, just one more dynamic there was Malik Willis of last year, right? And I think people maybe unfairly so compared Richardson to Willis too much, and were maybe hesitant to take him ahead of Stroud and Young when he might be perceived, okay, maybe he falls though. But once he got 4th overall capital, I think that ended those fears there, obviously.
Well, no, I think the comparison, to be honest, was fairly close when you looked at their college production, right? Richardson only played 13 games in college. And then you had Malik would only played 16 games, I think it was 16, 17 games total. So, and then of course it was at a lower division, not with the quality of competition. So, I don't know. I love the fact as a Gator that he ended up there in Indianapolis. I think that's probably the best landing spot for him, even though I thought it was going to be Seattle or Detroit would have been a better spot. Never even thought of Indy because I was so stuck that that's where Levis was going. The smoke was just so thick there. So, Kyle, what have you seen in your rookie drafts that has surprised you?
So it feels like, and not every rookie draft, but there was the first one I had done, the one that has been completed. Will Levis went 111, and I don't know. I'm kind of mostly off on Will Levis. I think maybe back end of the second, even early third, I'll take a shot. But to me, he didn't get the first round capital, and he was picked 33 overall, which doesn't seem that bad in the grand scheme of things.
32. Miami didn't have a pick in the first round.
Yeah, but I don't think he was the first pick of the second round, though. I thought he was
Yeah.
the second pick. No, it wasn't Joey Porter Jr., 32?
Yeah, Steelers had first pick.
That's right. That's right. Okay. I thought the Titans
To be
traded
fair, everyone thought Joey Porter should be a first round pick, and he essentially is. But yes, no, what would normally be the first pick of the second day and draft pick 33. We all thought Skoronski should be a guard, not a tackle. So what does that say that the Titans took a guard instead of taking the quarterback? I've heard some people say that that helps because they've addressed the offensive line, which is true. But I don't know. I'm just kind of out on Levis. I didn't like the profile and the fact that he's not getting first round capital. I don't really want to reach on him.
Yes, this isn't on the show sheet, but Rahul, I know right before we started, you said you were kind of on the fence or even out on Levis.
Mm-hmm.
Where are you seeing him fall in the few rookie drafts that you've already done?
Right. Yeah. I have been seeing that kind of that top 9, a very clear top 9. You could say top 10, but because Kincaid in some drafts that I've been in has actually snuck into that top 9 itself, especially if it's tight end premium. So I have been seeing Levis, 111, end of the first, start of the second. I personally, as Kyle put it right there, with the draft capital, I think for quarterback, that is the biggest indicator. Even though we could do as much research as we want, but quarterback evaluation is the hardest thing in the game, even for personnel of the NFL itself. So I think once he even got out of the first 15 picks, I think he was always going to fall for myself. That top 10 after that, it starts to get a little bit nasty, but I'm sure we'll get into that very soon.
No, Jamie, today is Friday. It is Cinco de Mayo. Don't be confused. We're here on a Friday. We had some scheduling issues with me personally. And then, of course, if we'd have done it yesterday, Kyle wouldn't be here. But we had to have Kyle on. So,
thanks.
You
see, Scampers tell us. The cat set us straight. It's Friday.
Just read, Jamie. It says Friday right above you.
Got days of the week as comments, but of course, if anyone wants to, comment, chime in, join us on the Going for Two Live YouTube page. You can also join through the Going for Two Twitch page, Going for Two Facebook. We'll be able to see your comments there. If you do send us comments on the videos on Twitter, we unfortunately won't be able to see those though through our feed. So head over again to the Going for Two Live network as we continue to talk and answer. It's Revenge of the Fifth, right?
It's Revenge of the Fifth, right? Yes. So with the landing spots that we have for the running backs, if Bijan and Gibbs are still your RB1 and 2, Brian, who's your RB3 now?
Well, I've seen on the show sheet that, and I have to pay full respect to Kyle because, in all honesty, he does a lot more of this than I do. But it looked like he kind of liked to play same player I did. Mm-hmm. So my guy is Kendra Miller out of playing for the Saints.
Yeah, I mean, the opportunity that he will have, assuming that Kamara is going to be out, even with Jameson or with Jamal Williams, there seems to be some potential that he is going to see the field at least a little bit of opportunity. Rahul, the same question to you: Who's your number 3 if Bijan and Gibbs are your 1-2?
I did hate filling this out last because I also had Kendra as my RB3, right? We were just talking about this, how at that 111, if you're not going to go Levis, that's when you pick from that next tier of running backs. I would say I currently have Charbonnet, A-Shane, and Kendra in that little grouping right there. I do love the potential opportunity in that Saints backfield, but I have to say I love the prospect. It was a little disappointing that he didn't really have the chance to test going into the NFL draft, and that kind of made me worried fall into day 3. But I really think that, first of all, he's actually one of the youngest running backs. He's still only 20. He's extremely elusive for a back that's 215. He wasn't really involved. He doesn't really have the receiving numbers in college, but if you go and look at TCU stats, they just didn't get the running backs involved in the passing game at all. So I do think he has that 3-down upside. The only worry really is that if you look at, Kamara as a whole, different story with the legal issues, but if you look at Kamara and Jamal Williams' contracts, there's a good chance they might be on the roster through 2024. That's a bit to wait. but I do like the opportunity the best as well for Kendre Miller. So I'd say he's my RB3. Not to jump on the bandwagon, but that is how I feel.
The Dynasty Gambit fully endorses Kendre Miller as the RB3.
Yeah. I was gonna say before I send this question over to Kyle, Mr. Scamplers, I have already DM'd you all 3 of our addresses, or all 4 of our addresses. So those carne asada tacos should be in the mail when you're done cooking those, please.
I hope they're hot.
Yes, please put those in those Domino's delivery bags and ship them. Thank you so much.
I will say, Jamie, it's not crazy to take Miller over Roshan. It's
no, it's crazy. It's crazy for Jamie because Roshan is like his running back 0 out of he would take Roshan over any of them, I do believe. So this is why I put Kyle last on this question, because Kyle and I have the same top 3 before the draft. I had
Bijan,
Charbonnet,
and Miller.
And no, okay, that's where I was off there. I had Bijan, Charbonnet, and Gibbs, Miller were my top 4. So Kyle, go ahead with your answer here, because I know you didn't have Gibbs at 2.
Yeah. No, it's the question of, do you still have Gibbs at 2? I never had him at 2. I do now have him at 2 though, because like the round 1 capital, when the only one guy that got round 2 capital went to like the worst spot ever. That's such a gap between him and everyone else that I had no choice, regardless of my priors, that he has to be the RB2. And I'm really starting to come to grips with him as the 105 in rookie drafts.
Mm-hmm.
I think my first instinct was, okay, I think I kind of like most of those first round receivers ahead of him, but I've kind of flipped that to maybe even taking him ahead of JSN. So we'll find out in the all money league on Sunday, Gator J, what I'm doing with that 103, but it's probably going to be one of them.
I will go ahead and tell you, even in Superflex, I am taking JSN over either Bryce Young or CJ Stroud. So that is,
I saw that one of my rookie drafts today. He went 104. So yeah,
call it a hot take, whatever you want to. You can go check out that on YouTube. There, I did put out a short on my feelings of JSN going over those 2 quarterbacks.
So not to sell Kendre short, because for me, this dates back to like first film evaluations. He was RB2, and Bijan was kind of a gap between him and everyone else, but there was also a bit of a gap between Miller and the rest of the group for me. So I thought he was comfortably RB2 in terms of talent and who I think are the best runners. Because Rahul mentioned how elusive he is. He's also really good at contact balance, but to me, he was one of the best footwork technicians in this class. Doesn't waste any steps, and that I think helps Rahul, what you were saying with his elusiveness. He can make those cuts really quickly because he can do it on one step and he's changing direction. I don't know if his burst is necessarily Bijan, for instance. Like, we've got a few guys in this class that are really bursty, but I find he churns well through contact as well. Someone hits him, he keeps his feet moving. So kind of all the technical aspects of running that we like. And the college production and the lack of RAS is kind of tough to change, like post combine, because we didn't have anything. So I chose to kind of keep him. But to me, he was always RB2, RB3 throughout the process. So nothing's changed here. I like the landing spot relative to some of these other day 2 running backs. So RB3 for me.
Yeah, and I think I've moved, just in my personal rankings, I think I've moved Charbonnet down to 4, just because of landing spot. I still believe in him as a true 3-down back coming out. But with the landing spot being there in Seattle and what we got Walker there last year, and both you and I, Kyle, are very high on Walker. We both had him as our RB1 last year, which is insane.
I had him as my RB1 like 10 days ago.
Right. Well, no, but in the class, in last year's class, and then of course you had him basically for the NFL, you had him as RB1, even over a CMC or a Jonathan Taylor overall. So
Dynasty, yeah. No.
Well, Kyle, go ahead and tell us who we're sponsored by tonight.
Well, I hope no one's lip reading me because I've covered my face by this, but our sponsor's logo right on my face. I got the Going for 2 logo on top, but certainly the one we want to draw attention to with this shiny logo is the Underdog Fantasy app. So you can play Underdog. You can gamble on games. I don't know if they like the word gambling. You can play contests on games like NFL game, or well, not NFL games. You can in September, but right now NBA playoffs, NHL playoffs, Major League Baseball games are going, Major League Soccer, and there's tons of other international leagues across the world. So you can obviously play contests for them, but we're a fantasy football channel here at Going for Two. So, of course, we fully endorsed Underdog best ball drafts. And, of course, as a way to connect and get involved with Underdog, they're giving out a $100 deposit match for any new joiners who use our promo code. You can either scan the QR code for those watching on screen, but for the audio listeners, that promo code is GF2, capital G, capital F, and the number 2. And again, their deposit match is up to $100. So whatever you put in, they will double your amount, and that'll be available to you in your Underdog account. So if you go max out with 100 and you deposit $100, they will put an extra 100. You'll have $200 right away to use to play in all these Underdog contests. So join today. Again, promo code GF2 or scan the QR code.
Yeah, and Best Ball Mania 4 is going on right now. They just opened up the puppy. So that just tells me that Best Ball Mania 4 is filling up so fast. They went ahead and opened the puppy up basically a week after they opened up Best Ball Mania 4. So usually I'm assuming this is going to be they're probably going to have 4 or 5 puppies with this Best Ball Mania 4. So
I wonder if they're going to have any feline drafts. They're going to jump the shark, and Underdog will have a cat draft or something.
That's right.
Scampers would love that.
Scampers, how you doing? Hey, Scampers needs to go ahead and get a hold of Underdog and see if they can just do a Scampers. Call it Scampers. Yeah. Go ahead and get your.
I'll join that.
Yep. Go ahead and get your sponsorship there, Scampers. Rahul, I kind of hit it on it a minute ago talking about Charbonnet. In my opinion, the biggest loser in this draft with landing spot is Charbonnet. Even though he had great draft capital, it's just the absolute worst landing spot with Walker there. What's going to happen to him in these rookie drafts?
Yeah, I am very upset. Yes, on behalf of Jacques Charbonnet. I actually grew up right by UCLA, so I am particular towards them. But for the sweet Prince Kenneth Walker, who seems to be on all of my dynasty teams, it is a really messy situation. Good dynasty process would say take the great 3-down prospect who did get almost top 50 draft capital. But, even though there is this perception of Seahawks as, run first team, it is hard to see the ceiling for both players. Charbonnet does have that bigger profile, that receiving game that he added to his skill set in his last year of college, but it is an ugly situation. I think I said this a little bit earlier, but he kind of has been falling in that tier 3, RB3 to RB5 or so of Kendre himself and A-Chain. So probably does go in top 15 in most drafts that I've seen. I would not be happy taking him there personally.
I've seen him go as early as 110. Like people are still kind of, like you said, having him as the RB3. And
okay, so I want to send this to Brian real quick because we hear this every single year. Draft capital matters. Draft capital doesn't matter. Talent over landing spot. Landing spot's more important. In your opinion, using Zach Charbonnet for an example to start with, the talent is there. We all think he's got the talent to be a 3-down back. I mean, we had him as ranked number 2 in the class, or at least I did and Kyle did. Do we trust the talent, or do we trust the fact that, well, he got drafted, second round draft capital, but he's going to be a backup?
I've always been a proponent of landing spot over anything else. One thing about running backs, especially compared to wide receivers, you don't get a huge shelf life with them. I mean, you're looking usually 5 to 7 years. Maybe they get past the rookie contract plus a couple more years. And landing spot means so much because really if there's an opportunity in year 1 or 2 to make an impact, that's important, especially to running backs. So, yeah, I think landing spot is the most important thing to me.
But that is for running back specifically. Like for a wide receiver, would you say the draft capital is actually more important than the landing spot?
I think that you could use that twist on wide receivers. I think it's a 50-50 thing on wide receivers. I just think on running backs, landing spot's very predominant in regards to that.
I think, Scampers gives his opinion. Yep. For wide receivers, talent first, capital, and then landing spot.
And I agree with that. I think when you're looking at running backs, again, because of the short shelf life, mm-hmm. You have to have opportunity. And if you're behind somebody or even, fighting for timeshare, I think that's the biggest issue with running backs. And I think that's why when you look at some of these running backs, even like a DeAndre Swift, we all expected so much from DeAndre Swift. He doesn't even make it out of his first, his rookie contract before he gets traded because, well, they can go get Jahmyr Gibbs for way less money or, for a longer period and get the same production, if not a little bit more. So two guys that had a lot of pre-draft buzz, landed in awkward positions. Roshan Johnson. I know Jamie's going to be happy that we're going to talk about Roshan Johnson and Israel Abanikanda. Roshan in the 4th round. Izzy in the 5th round. Kyle, are either of these guys worth drafting, or are you just letting them fall to the waivers and hoping to pick them up later on?
Well, okay, I'm going to start by really playing to Jamie here, but this is legit and true, and I stand by this. I'm taking Roshan ahead of Jacques Charbonnet with the same idea that the landing spot matters so much.
Whoa.
And I don't think Charbonnet is the best running back on his team, frankly. I think Ken Walker's better. I think Roshan is the best running back on this Bears team, and I think he could see the lead opportunity and specifically the goal line work almost immediately. Like, to me, Dante Foreman's just a plotter. He's old. He's the Bears signed him when they were losing Montgomery. They didn't have anything else. They didn't know what they'd get. I don't know if they expected necessarily to get a guy as talented as Roshan in the 4th. He profiles as a better pass protector and better receiver than Herbert anyway. I think he's just a better running back than Khalil Herbert. So Roshan Johnson at the 201. I'm okay with that. I'll take him over Charbonnet. And I want to just touch something Rahul said about Seattle run heavy, right? And how situations change. I think the signal that Seattle just sent us just in this draft is that they want to pass the ball more. They're not taking a wide receiver at 20th overall. They're not taking Charbonnet, who, if we could say there's any weakness to Ken Walker's game, it's probably receiving. Certainly we like Zach Charbonnet as a receiving back profile. So the signals I'm getting from Seattle is not that they want to run more. They want to pass more. They've doubled down on Geno Smith, given him that big contract, and now they're surrounding him with weapons to pass more. So in a sense, that might help Charbonnet, but I also don't know how many carries he's going to get. Like, and it's not like Seattle's ever really thrown to the running back. And certainly getting Jackson Smith and Jigba there, that's not opening up more targets for Charbonnet. To me, that concentrates on the wide receivers. I mean, I don't think Charbonnet gets more targets than Noah Fant. So,
well, no, but I mean, when you look at last year's stats, just for Geno alone, he had 541 attempts for just over 4,000 yards. And then you just take DK and Tyler Lockett. Both of them were right about 8. I think Tyler Lockett had 80 catches on 100 attempts, and DK had 87 on 133, something along those lines. And the other side of that coin is this is probably Tyler Lockett's last year in Seattle, right? He's 31.
We have said that a few times, but I do agree with you, though.
I can see where JSN is going to move into that wide receiver 2, even possibly wide receiver 1 role. I think but what you're saying, to go back to what you're saying, is they are not the perceive or whatever the word is. I can't even think of the word now. The perception is that they are a run heavy team. I mean, teams that are throwing for 4,000 yards shouldn't be considered necessarily run heavy, especially teams that aren't, winning Super Bowls.
So I don't know. Is anyone else in favor of what I'm saying? Roshan over Charbonnet? Is that too extreme?
That's a little extreme for me. I don't know if I can do that, but I don't hate it. I'm the same guy that's taking JSN over.
And I'll be honest, if I go back to my film grades, Roshan I think is a better runner than Charbonnet. I think Roshan was like 4th or 5th, and Charbonnet was 10th, just right at one spot ahead of Gibbs. So,
yeah, I don't hate the take, to be honest. I could certainly see it. Some people may have Roshan Moore as a personal favorite, and I wouldn't be opposed to that at all.
Like Jamie.
Yeah,
I'm just sad that Roshan didn't go to the Browns to make Jamie super happy.
Oh no, that head on his is already big enough. I mean, God, it's hard to get him on camera on Tuesday nights. Can you imagine if he got Roshan, how big that head would be? Rahul, what do you got anything to add about the Seattle offense?
Mm-hmm. Well, the Seattle offense itself, I think one point as well, because we've definitely covered a lot, is Geno also ran for maybe 350 yards. He isn't, I would at least have the perception of 33-year-old Geno kind of being more of a statue, maybe giving that kind of dump off volume that could let Charbonnet become a flex level play in his own right, even if Ken Walker is, as it seems that we agree Ken Walker is going to handle a predominant workload. Geno is going to take off from time to time. So I just don't think the volume is there for Charbonnet himself. I do want to actually go back to Roshan. I don't know if I'm there yet to put Roshan over Charbonnet. Maybe I'm just blind, to the reality of things. But one point that Kyle made that I really wanted to emphasize is that Roshan is coming out of college as a very strong pass protector, which the Bears are really signaling, and as they should, be wanting to put that kind of personnel around Justin Fields. That was a big debate, I think, last year with, if you use the eye test, it did seem obvious that Khalil Herbert was a little bit more explosive than Montgomery, but Montgomery still saw the field, for the majority of plays while both of them were healthy. I think that's where Roshan is going to come in and take Montgomery's workload because of that pass protecting edge that he, brings from college.
And I mean, to Jamie's credit, like, if he had gone to the Browns, I probably wouldn't be this excited of taking him as like the RB5 in the class, for instance. So we can do a whole Roshan hour because, like, frankly, the part of the question was Israel Abanikanda. Haven't even mentioned him once, except for right there. But doesn't matter. Buried on the Jets.
Fifth round draft pick.
I mean, as much as I don't think he's better than Michael Carter. I know he might be faster than Michael Carter, but I don't necessarily think he's a better running back than Michael Carter. Not that I think Michael Carter's that amazing. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he comes in and he's the main backup. But I mean, Zonovan Knight's still pretty good too. So that's a super crowded spot.
Well, that's where I was going to ask you. I mean, I don't think the Jets think he's better than Michael Carter, but do the Jets think he's better than Zonovan Knight?
Maybe that might not even matter enough for us for fantasy. I'd rather invest in Eric Gray, who seems on a much clearer path to be the main backup.
Well, that's kind of why I wanted to bring him up, because I wanted somebody to, other than myself, to sit there and go, he's buried on a depth chart. He's like right now probably RB4 on his own team.
Abanikanda at no point has been in my top 12 running backs. So like I've been kind of low on him through the process, to be honest. As much as the relative athletic score jumps, that's really the only thing in his profile to me that jumps. The production's not great. I didn't love the film. Didn't think it was awful, but
all right. Well, we've hit a good bit on these running backs. Let's move over to some of these wide receivers. We know the four that were drafted in the first round. Let's talk more about the second round right now. These day 2, round 2. And Brian, let's start with you. Of these wide receivers that were drafted in the second round, which one of the, four of them, I think it was as well, Mingo, Reed, Rice, and Mims. Which one of these are you most excited to go and draft?
It's a little personal bias. My dad went to Oklahoma to get his master's, but still, even if he hadn't, I would be picking Marvin Mims here.
All right, Rahul.
I'm going to go with the one I actually knew the least about heading into the draft, and that's probably on me, but I really like what I've seen of Jayden Reed, kind of right after his name got called at the NFL draft. I think pick 50, second round, right?
Yeah, 50.
He looks very electric. He's got a lot of speed to him, great route runner. You look at his film and he's got acres of separation on a lot of these plays. I think, at the very worst, he's going to be a good possession receiver for Jordan Love, that safety blanket. Whereas, Christian Watson is going to be the one, trying to take the top off the defense. But I really think that Jayden Reed could develop into that, multi-level kind of wide receiver. He has upside to him. So I really like Jayden Reed, probably mid to late second round in rookie drafts.
I wasn't asked this question, but if I had to give an answer, it would have been Reed.
Well, you were fixing to be asked.
Because
you were fixing to be asked. I was going to say same question.
I jumped the gun because I like to ramble too much. So that's the lesson here. Is I need to stop talking, but I'm not going to learn that anyway.
No, it's fine. Go right
on the Full Press Fantasy Pod, I guess maybe about a month ago, I had Ryan Searfoss on from the Going for Two family. One of the people I trust a lot, especially scouting wide receivers, and he didn't even have him listed, and I had him at 6, and that was kind of eye-opening. It's okay, like I like this guy, I like his production profile enough, and I think with this capital, to me, he's the wide receiver 5. Now, to Scamper's credit, saying Jonathan Mingo in a multiverse draft, and this year's universe is 1 QB, so we'll call it a 1 QB rookie draft because it does feel like where the quarterbacks went reflects that. Mingo went 109. He's the wide receiver 5 off the board. He went before Bryce Young and CJ Stroud, one spot right after Dalton Kincaid. So he's a Panthers fan, to be fair. I'm not sure if that person who took Mingo 109 is a Panthers fan, but he was the wide receiver 5 in the NFL draft. So I don't think that's an awful pick. I think the pedigree of these day 2 wide receivers, I think you can, to me, it does seem like one big tier. There's arguments to make for several of these guys.
Yeah, and I want to wrap it with the day 2 tight ends, or I'm sorry, the round 2 tight ends as well. You had Sam Laporta, Michael Mayer, Luke Musgrave, Luke Schoonmaker.
I've pronounced it
then
Schoonmaker, but I've also heard some people pronounce it Schoonmaker.
Schoonmaker. Okay,
So
yeah, I've heard it both ways. So yeah, and then Britton Strange, for Jacksonville there. Kyle, which one of these tight ends are you looking to? Let's say you have like the 211, 212, maybe even like the 305. Which one of these tight ends are you wanting to move up in your rookie drafts?
Yeah, I want Laporta. I don't think you're getting Laporta at the 211.
Right, that's what I'm saying. So if you have to move up,
trade up for one,
yep.
Frankly, the thing is, if I'm that late in the third, I'll just take Luke Schoonmaker, because I actually like him as maybe the tight end 3, to be honest. So I don't mind taking 3rd round shots on Schoonmaker. Like, I'd rather do that than give up capital to trade up for another tight end. Like, if I'm gonna be trading up to the mid-second, it's because A-Chain fell and I want to grab him there, or I don't see any of the receivers falling really. But yeah, it'd probably be like A-Chain or Miller, or maybe even Roschon. If one of those guys fell, those would be the guys I'd be willing to trade up from a early 3rd into the mid-second for. But I don't really want to do it for a tight end. But if I do have a mid-second and I want to take a tight end, to me, it's Sam Laporta. Relative to most of the guys taken around 2, his relative athletic score is better. I guess Schoonmaker and I think actually both Green Bay guys had higher RAS scores than him. But I love his opportunity on the Lions. We already talked about it with Jahmyr Gibbs, how the targets are open. I mean, you look at that tight end depth chart. That's technically even like because Gibbs has David Montgomery to deal with. There's no tight end on this roster even close to David Montgomery's caliber in terms of like relative to position, like James Mitchell, Brandon Zylstra, Shane Zylstra. I don't know. Maybe Brandon Zylstra should play tight end. I'm not sure. No, he's a good enough wide receiver. He should change. But to me, like, it's the opportunity, the offense. It's a great offense in terms of just number of points scored. How many touchdowns did those random tight ends get last year? If Laporta can condense that, but also still get targets and be a good yards after the catch guy, you might not be that far off from Dalton Kincaid, to be honest. So I'll plant the flag on him. I like everything about his situation more than Michael Mayer's, I'll be honest.
So when I built the show sheet, I was kind of going through it. I was like, okay, time frame, trying to put it at. We've actually whipped through a good bit of this. So going off script a little bit here.
Well, don't we want to ask the other 2 about their tight ends?
Is that what you're doing?
That's
what I'm doing.
I thought you were going to a different question. You see, I got to stop interrupting. I still haven't learned. I'm sorry.
Rahul, it's not on the show sheet, but out of these second tier, or the second round tight ends, those 5 tight ends that were drafted in the second round, which one are you wanting to go grab? Or maybe even like I posed the question to Kyle, you're in that early 3rd. There's a tight end run happening mid-second. Which one of these guys are you like, oh, let me move up right now, go get this particular tight end?
Right. I'm going to have to agree with Kyle yet again with Sam Laporta. I really like the profile. I really like the opportunity. I love the offense. But going to Sam Laporta specifically, I think his ability after the catch, his ability to be, kind of a safe receiver. I can see him as like a high volume guy that while he may not, just thinking about the offense, he may not hit the heights of, a Kelsey and Andrews, Waller from a few years ago, but who does? I can see Laporta being a comfortable, top 6 tight end year in, year out in that role in the offense. Otherwise, a guy who, probably started the year, this year of evaluation of the 2023 prospects is, of course, Michael Mayer was the, cut and dry tight end 1. Ended up in a quite a tasty landing spot, and the Raiders, in the top 40 picks, and he's just falling down boards. I think Michael Mayer really could be a great value if you get him. You could probably get him in the early 3rd, really. So yeah, there are some tasty options that, more than a round removed from Kincaid would probably be better values to get onto your team.
Yeah, you might see Mayer go as the tight end 2. Sorry, Brian. Go ahead. You might see Mayer go as the tight end 2 in a certain draft, but I've already seen Laporta go as the tight end 2 and Mayer fall to not quite the 3rd, but like back end of the 2nd, which seems like even a week ago it seems like that would have been crazy to think that he's not like a 202, 203 at the very latest. So
Right.
Yeah, and I like you just said, Rahul, I love Mayer's landing spot, especially with Jimmy G there for the next couple years. Hyper target, he hyper targeted Greg Kittle. He can do the same thing with Michael Mayer. The only thing I don't like about Laporta with his landing spot is we saw this with Detroit in the past. With TJ Hawkinson, try to make him an inline blocker and, try to learn this scheme, that scheme. So we've seen this with Detroit. Now, again, I believe that was with a different regime, but it's still, that's still there, that mindset. So
the fake offensive coordinator, Matt Patricia.
right.
Fake genius.
Exactly. Brian, same question to you. Which one of these guys are you wanting to get? You cannot have, let's say Sam Laporta is off the board now that these two guys have already taken him. Sam Laporta is off the board. Who are you jumping up to go grab now?
I'm going to actually trade up and trump both of these guys, and I'm going to take Laporta. No, I'm okay with Michael Mayer. I mean, landing spots is fine, like y'all suggested. Surprisingly, like you said, he was trumpeted as tight end one the whole year. He winds up being the fourth tight end drafted overall. So, everybody's backed off him a little bit, but somebody on the draft shows kind of compared him to Jason Witten. I'm okay with that. So I'll go with him.
Yeah, I've heard the Jason Witten comparison as well. So
this comment came up when we were talking about Izzy Abanikanda. Evan Hull. I am Evan Hull over Abanikanda.
Yeah, I mean, all he does is score touchdowns. It doesn't matter if he's running a 40-yard dash. It doesn't matter if he's doing high step. He's just going to score touchdowns. So yeah,
he's
give me
in the
Evan
end
Hall.
zone for sure.
And then Jamie mentioned, I guess going for two. There's a mock draft article coming up, and I guess that if it hasn't been released yet, it will be released shortly. And I guess Jamie took Evan Hull at the 311. In my rookie draft that's completed, Evan Hull, I got him at the 312.
Oh wow! So you got way more value on him than Jamie did.
Yeah, just that one extra spot. That's all the value you need, right? So you should have traded down Jamie, in that mock draft article. I'm sure that was feasible and viable.
I do want to give a quick shout out to someone who was, when he was drafted, was labeled a tight end, but Sleeper actually still has him as a wide receiver, and that's Elijah Higgins out of Stanford, who didn't play any tight end in college, but I think the story goes that at the Senior Bowl, he was asked if he'd convert to tight end. He took it on board, and when he was drafted, he was called a tight end. That Miami depth chart seems to be Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, and Trent Sherfield maybe? Of course, Mike Gesicki is out of there.
Left. I think Sherfield's gone. Gesicki's gone.
Gesicki's gone. So I think Elijah Higgins, especially.
Cedric Wilson is still there?
Yeah, you're probably right. It's probably Cedric Wilson.
Yeah. But especially if we get that tight end designation on Elijah Higgins, I don't think he's really even being drafted in most completed drafts that I've seen. He could be a sneaky pickup to just stash in the taxi squad and see.
Nice little.
Yeah, what comes up.
Certainly in tight end premium leagues before the switch is made, that'd be the really smart.
Yeah, if you can get him late third or whatever late, depending on how long your rookie draft is, the fourth round. If you can get him at that 410, 412 area, or even go pick him up directly on waivers, that's a. See, this is why we bring Rahul on, right? This is what we do. We
yes,
sneaky guy right here.
Because before he's a tight end.
The tight end depth chart is pretty climbable in the Dolphins. Durham Smythe and Eric Sobert. That's what he's got to work ahead of.
Yeah, well, they sent their tight end one over to, I believe it was the Charger when they sent Hunter Long over there, right? Yeah. They were supposed to be, he's supposed to be better than Gesicki, so we'll see.
I actually forgot that the Dolphins was the chosen landing spot of Chosen Anderson. He's also on the team. Braxton Berrios is there. River Craycraft. A bunch of guys that other teams decided no thanks. Eric Izukama, I think they drafted him last year. The Dolphins did, so he might climb up to be the wide receiver 3 before long.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter when you have Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, right?
They're going to command most of the targets.
Yeah. So, all right, but let's get ready to put a bow on this episode with a couple final questions. What player, doesn't matter, quarterback, running back, wide receiver, or tight end, that was in the 4th to 7th round draft capital, are you wanting to stash on your taxi squad? Brian, let's start with you.
I got a couple guys. First of all, And this is really hard to swallow because he went to Tennessee. But Cedric Tillman would be one of my guys. And then the other guy I really like, and I'm thinking you start out, if he's available third round, why not go Tank Bigsby? In the fourth round, Tank Dell.
Love it. Love it. Brian, before we get to your answer right here, I want to pull this question up and I want to send it to Rahul here. What if you're trying to trade forward Cooper Kupp? Jamie wants to know what draft picks would you give up for him?
Mm-hmm. If you're a rebuilder trying to move off Kupp, which I guess is the only situation really where you're not keeping Kupp on your team. If you can get anything higher, if you can get a top 6 pick, I think that's a smash. Except that send that straight over. Once you get to 107, it's a little bit more questionable. Can you add something on? Because there are question marks from, for me, JSN is wide receiver 1. There are question marks for the rest of them. QJ, Addison, Zay. If push came to shove, I probably would accept that 107, 108 to get Kupp on my team or get Kupp off my team in that scenario.
And I was almost wondering that might be the spot where if you're contending, trading away that potential at Jordan Addison or Quentin Johnston, like you're going to get more points with Cooper Kupp. So a contending team might also that could be the range there, 106, 107. So I don't think that's an awful to try and go.
I don't know if I could send Addison though. I think Addison's got a pretty juicy spot up there in Minnesota.
You easily smash the 110, right? Because we talked about the clear. Once those first round receivers are gone, rather than take Dalton Kincaid, can you just get Cooper Kupp and get those points and figure out tight end later? So I think if Jamie, like the way I interpret this question is Jamie wants to go buy Cooper Kupp.
Right. That's the way I took it.
Try and trade Cooper. Wait, what picks would you trade Kupp for? Yeah, trading away the picks for Kupp. That's how I interpret it. So
I think the 108 would be as early as I'd want to go. Just thinking about it, you got the 3 quarterbacks, you've got the 2 running backs, JSN, Addison. So that 108 is that spot where I'm like, okay, I don't want to give up Addison if for Kupp, just for unless Kupp is the absolute guarantee to win my chip.
I mean, points per game he was better than Jefferson last year, so there's probably no receiver that's going to outproduce him other than probably Jefferson. So maybe Jamar Chase, but like we expect top 3 wide receiver production from him. So he's the type, I'd rather go by him than say go by Diggs or by Tyreek Hill or by Adams. Like if I'm going to buy any of those older guys, Kupp's the guy I want.
Yeah, the other side of that coin, though, in my opinion, is OBJ's not there no more. Right? So it's Kupp, Van Jefferson, Skoranek.
Allen Robinson's gone too.
The rest of the depth chart's pathetic.
Seemed fine last year, to be fair. Right, like he was
smashing
last year with that group. Allen Robinson was there, but I don't think that much.
He was a better wide receiver than anybody else on the field for the Rams when he was injured. He was on the bench in street clothes, and he was better than any other wide receiver on that team. So that's Rahul. So let's go to your wide receiver running back.
Just because Brian mentioned Tillman, like, does everyone agree with this? What Jamie's saying, that Tillman is a better version of what Donovan Peoples-Jones is, and do we expect him to kind of take over that third wide receiver role on the team pretty soon?
I don't think they're the same receiver. DPJ has always been more of that, or to me has seen more of that deep threat, take the top off. And I think if anything, he was more involved last year than the coaching staff probably wants him to be, just because of the sheer lack of weapons on that team. I think Tillman is the kind of guy who may back up Amari Cooper this year, and then I think step into that role as the one. I'm actually a big fan of Cedric Tillman coming out of Tennessee. I do think he's better than DPJ though.
It's just like you said, his role in the offense might be redundant with they already have Elijah Moore, they already have a Cooper for those possession receivers, so he may, and I don't think you're drafting a round 3 NFL wide receiver with the expectation that he's going to smash right away as a rookie. So a good future investment. You like the quarterback he's tied to in Watson at least.
Yeah, I don't disagree with anything Rahul has said there. I also have Tillman over Hyatt to be honest when they're when they were on the same team. I believe Hyatt was blown up by one game in that Alabama game that everybody in the world watched because it was Alabama.
I didn't watch it, but I am
Well,
higher on
no,
Hyatt than Tillman, so it's funny because that's not the reason. Clearly,
we cut that feed off because we don't allow good football to go to Canada.
Well, it's true. We got the CFL here, so we'd rather watch that than college.
There you go.
That's better.
All right, well let's move over to Rahul right here. What player, quarterback, wide receiver, running back, tight end, fourth to seventh round draft capital, are you wanting to stash on your taxi squad?
Yep, I'm also going to go with players here. So apologies in advance. These are two names that we probably were talking about as round one rookie picks coming into the year and here both Zach Evans and Kayshon Boutte. I wasn't a fan. I wouldn't say I was that big of a fan of them at that price point, but now when they're going in the third round or later, both for the talent that they both, displayed on tape, but also the situations that they landed in. Zach Evans is probably already the RB2 on the Rams, and Boutte, I mean, who is he competing with? Like, was it Devontae Parker or Tyquan Thornton? We have heard about off the field issues, maybe question about the mentality, especially with how Boutte handled the combine. But there is, high upside for both of them. I guess for a lesser known player, because I probably went with the biggest names I could have there, I really like Charlie Jones going to the Bengals. He is a nice little slot receiver that may not get too much work this year, but I could easily see him taking over the Tyler Boyd role in a year or two. And that has been a productive role for fantasy, even with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins on that squad already.
Love the Charlie Jones right there. All right, Kyle, take it home. Oh, here we go. I knew. Here we go. Here we go.
Chase Brown, baby. Canadian. We're talking Canada, right?
Yeah.
What a
sorry for the delay in audio, folks. I changed my going for two hat to my Dynasty Canada hat.
Oh,
it's funny that it's actually not Dynasty. It's not that's a curling apparel company, not a football company, but we're the Dynasty Gambit, so it applies, right?
Jeff, if you're listening to this, you need to go back and watch this. We are at 52:06, so about 10, 15 seconds before this. You definitely need that in your life. You put it on a short reel for yourself. Personally, I don't care. You will love watching Kyle scramble. As soon as I
just
threw the
thought
question,
of it in my head. Oh, maybe I should change hats. Oh, joy! I should have planned this out. Yeah,
that wasn't planned.
I really thought that was planned, and it was even better.
That was off the cusp.
Even better. Well, Kyle, the one thing I will say, and I know you were super proud of this because Saturday afternoon while we were live on air, it happened. 5 Canadians drafted in the NFL draft, set a record for the country. How crazy was it? Like did y'all shut everything down and run the streets naked, or what happened up in Canada when you had 5 drafted?
Well, the Toronto Maple Leafs are playing. That's giving way more attention. that would have induced that. I think them winning their first round series. Sorry to bring that up and put salt in your wounds, but just the country would be crazy for that. Like, but yeah, not quite. The truth is though, this isn't coming out of nowhere. Like there were 4 Canadians drafted in 2014, 4 Canadians drafted in 2021. In fact, I think it's been 17 straight years with at least one Canadian. So certainly the last couple of years too, we've seen more and more. And so I don't think I think like everyone expected this to happen. So this wasn't a total surprise and shock. It would have been a massive disappointment if all 5 of those guys didn't go. So, but we'll see if Joe Mixon is still on the team. It seems like for now he is, but if he's not, that depth chart is wide open, similar to Roshan Johnson, who, to be fair, when I first saw this question, like, oh, the answer is easily Roshan. And then I was reading further, it's like a taxi squad, because I think Roshan can be played now. You don't want him in your taxi squad. You want him to score points. But certainly I think Chase Brown could carve a role in this Bengals offense, maybe aiming more for 2024. Fast, athletic guy, but also good footwork. I think those two things, a great athlete and great technical runner. And to me, combining that together, I know some people have some questions about his vision, perhaps. Maybe he's not the most fluid mover at making avoiding tacklers or making guys miss, but and Scampers is a Florida Panthers fan, so to be honest, I'm actually cheering against the Leafs because I'm a Red Wings fan, and the Panthers are behind the Islanders, but if they make it to the conference finals, that Islanders pick that the Red Wings have will go from 18 to 17. So all for the sake of moving up one spot in the draft, I hope the Panthers beat the Leafs.
The analytics of your draft analysis is on point. Knowing exactly where that draft pick is going to be is phenomenal.
I have no idea who would even be available at 17, though, so don't ask me to mock for like the Red Wings, but I know that they have the 18th pick, and it could be the 17th. So 2 more games, Florida. Let's go.
All right, guys. One last question, and I want you to plant your flag right now. And I'm going to trip you up right quick because I know the obvious answer is Bijan Robinson. So we're taking Bijan out of the equation. Who's going to be your offensive rookie of the year this year? Kyle, you're on the board.
Well, I had to erase my answer on the show sheet of Bijan Robinson. It's funny that I'm looking at everyone's secondary answers because I actually only gave one. My co-host and our guest they were putting multiple answers each time. Very, very dedicated. I'm not so much. I love being on the show though. It's funny that no one else took quarterbacks. And it's typically, if a quarterback comes out and does well, it'll be that award. So whoever you think will be the best quarterback this year, I'll plant my flag and say Stroud still. I still think he's the best QB in the class, and I think he'll find a way to make it work with Houston right away. And I think anything short of if he makes that Houston first round pick super late and it kind of messes up the Cardinals' plans of potentially having 2 top 5 picks like Houston did this year, I think they'll mess that up, and I think they'll win enough games with Stroud.
Right. Well,
enough,
I know
maybe not playoffs, but enough to give him the award.
Rahul, I know your name was first on that list, but I saw Kyle over there deleting real quick. And I was like, no, I got to trip him up. So, Rahul, who are you planting your flag on to be offensive rookie of the year?
Somehow I forgot that quarterbacks qualify for this award, maybe because of the last
we usually offensive player of the year, we tend to that's a one where sometimes it's a QB, but we usually NFL will, unless it's like a Lamar Jackson, unanimous MVP, they'll usually
point. And I feel like we haven't had a great rookie quarterback season. Mac Jones is probably the best one in the last couple of years.
Herbert, I think. Herbert win or did Jefferson win that year?
If you look at wins, they're in the last 5 years or so. Only 2 quarterbacks have won more than 7 games in their rookie year, and that's Mac Jones and Kenny Pickett.
Wow. Although Kenny Pickett,
in his rookie year, it doesn't matter that he only started 12 games, but he won 7 of those.
Wow. Anyway, the answer that I did write down with that quarterback-shaped block in my head was Jahmyr Gibbs, who I do think is going to be a contributor from day one. It's going to be really exciting to see how they line him up. We chatted a bit about them potentially lining him up from the slot. If we remember just to maybe 2 seasons ago and last offseason, DeAndre Swift was up there as running back 2, running back 3 in Dynasty based on how electric he was. So if you assume that he could go into that role, I think Jahmyr Gibbs is going to be a very exciting player for the Lions.
Brian?
Well, I had to go with where we talked about how important for wide receivers, landing spot, talent. I went to the best of all worlds. I went Jordan Addison here.
I'm just looking at the Rookie of the Year awards. And so 10 years ago, we had that historic 2012 class. Andrew Luck, Robert Griffin III, Russell Wilson, Ryan Tannehill. So many great quarterbacks came out of it. So RG3 won that year. Since then, last 10 winners of the awards, there's been only 3 quarterbacks. Dak Prescott in 2016, Kyler Murray in 2019, and then Justin Herbert's the last quarterback to win Offensive Rookie of the Year in 2020.
Wow, interesting.
So maybe my pick of Stroud doesn't look that good. Sorry, Brian?
Kyler Murray was the third one?
Yeah, Murray, Prescott, and Herbert, yeah.
And those are just Offensive Rookie of the Year, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
No quarterback is one Defensive Rookie of the Year, though, I'm pretty sure.
No, I was wondering, if the MVP is normally strictly quarterback.
Yeah.
So you had a quarterback win an MVP probably.
At least the Rookie of the Year, they're nice enough to give it to a defensive.
Right, to an actual player. Well, because you've got an offensive and a defensive Rookie of the Year. So they made two just so it would be fair.
And I guess to be fair, they do have an Offensive Player of the Year and Defensive Player of the Year awards. Just happen to have an MVP on top.
The common thread amongst those 3 quarterbacks, they all had really good supporting cast.
True. Murray had Christian Kirk, Fitzgerald to start. Like he had and of course his legs were great weapons.
Mhm.
Yep. Same thing with Dak. I mean, when you look at that wide receiving core as well. So
Cole Beasley, Des Bryant,
Yep.
Zeke.
Guys,
those three all got like 100 targets basically that year too. So
yeah, they threw the ball all over the field because they had to, because they had no defense, right? They were playing from behind every game.
Still was the 1 seed that year, so that's impressive.
Well,
lost in the divisional round, of course.
Right? Well, imagine that. Dallas loses in the go back.
Where have we heard that before?
The Jared Cook catch, like that's a moment in time. His only season with the Packers, like one of the best throws Aaron Rodgers has made, and it was Jared Cook that caught it.
Guys, this was super fun. Thanks, Rahul, for joining us tonight. Let the good people know where they can find you and what you got going on Going for Two.
Thank you, guys. I just want to say again that very grateful for the opportunity to be on today's show. You can find me at Twitter at nrahul11. Just started writing for Going for Two recently. Very, very new to the fantasy football creation space. So I'm excited to dive more deeply into it. I've done a few rookie profiles, but my background is coming from more like data analysis heavy work. So I'm hoping to bring that as well to my articles. So very excited to be here to chat with all of you guys, and looking forward to anything we come across in the future.
Absolutely. It was
Hats
wonderful
off,
having you on.
So Going for Two live inaugural appearance.
Yeah, absolutely. Wonderful having you on. We will definitely have to get you back on again. We are looking forward to reading those articles as well. Brian, the floor is yours, sir.
You can always find me at Vandergrad92 on Twitter. My content for now is right here at the Dynasty, is right here at the Gambit. May have other stuff coming up with baseball, not sure. But for now, it's just right here with the Gambit.
Awesome. Kyle, what's going on with you?
All right, so I'm at Senra Says, of course, the Gambit every second Thursday. So I guess our next episode, guys, is not this Thursday, of course, but the 18th. Thursday, May 18th, and that will be a Thursday. Although, I mean, to be fair, unlike the Dynasty Saturday Night 5, there really are, like, Brian and Josh are stuck doing it on Saturday. It has to be at night. So, like, at least our name gives us a bit of leeway. It's a bit of a risk. Maybe it's Thursday, this week, Friday.
It's the Gambit.
Exactly.
I'm actually going on with Brian tomorrow.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we should have plugged that for you.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's Rahul's week on Going for Two Live.
Yes, sir. The great debut.
Hey,
awesome.
Listen, we have just as a network, just we got this new guy. We're just gonna whore him out to everybody.
Rookie of the year.
Rookie of the year.
Yeah. Not CJ Stroud. But yeah, I mean, and Jay mentioned it earlier, right? Jamie's on Tuesday nights with the fantasy cheat sheet. I mean, Speak On It's also on Tuesday. I already mentioned Foss, and of course Jeff Lambert, our gracious creator of Going for Two. Their shows on Wednesday nights. I also have my own show, Press Coverage, another show where I sit down one-on-one, do some interviews with people in the fantasy football industry. And so Matt Hicks will be my next guest, and that will be on May 15th. So that'll be a Monday for that. And of course, next Monday, Thursday, Gladys will host both nights. 2-point conversion on Monday in no particular order next Thursday. And I'll actually be on that next Thursday. And we'll be talking about doing a draft of greatest running backs of all time. I may or may not bring up Mike Pringle, CFL legend running back, because it wasn't specified that it just had to be NFL, I think, anyway. We'll find out next Thursday, of course.
It doesn't. Now she's going to go change that show sheet. Gladys, go change the show sheet right now. But it doesn't matter if she puts that on there or not. You will still find a way to get CFL into the conversation.
Yeah, and I also have the Full Press Fantasy Pod, Full Press Packers Pod on Twitter at FPC_Fantasy Pod, and at FPC_Packers. So a couple of other shows that I host there. Not live; those are just audio only. But appreciate everyone who supports everything. But certainly appreciate both my co-hosts and Rahul for joining us. This was awesome.
Absolutely. You can find me at FantasyJ77 over there on Twitter. You can find me here every other Thursday. You can find me Wednesday nights with Fantasy Intervention. And I mean, in the Discord sometimes. I'm probably going to get in trouble soon if I don't get in there a lot more. But Jeff's been so gracious to let us kind of be, free, talk to you guys, get information out to you. But for Brian, for Kyle, for Rahul, have a great weekend. We will see you guys in 2 weeks.